Ladies and gentlemen, Hebrews and Shebrews, welcome to the Life Podcast. It has been a year since we started. 52 episodes, baby. This is the 52nd episode, and it is with Kayte, my wife. We're answering questions that you guys have sent in, and we're getting a chance to talk to you and talk to each other about pressing issues. Before we get into this episode, here's a quick note from the people that help make it possible. Azure Standard. I got Kayte here to tell us more about why she shops at Azure as well, because she does a lot of our grocery shopping.
Well, for one thing, we live in a rural area, so we don't have like a big bulk food store or like a health food store nearby. I think our family saves a ton of money getting our dry goods through them because we can get these big quantities. I also just like that you're not getting all the packaging. There's a lot of reasons why it's good. But also you can find biblically clean, organic things that are hard for us to get anywhere else.
And you also have access to all of the health food stuff, like moringa powder, ashwagandha. They call it an adaptogen. It helps you adapt to the evening.
The other thing I like is the bulk spices. I found all the ones that I liked, and then I got like the big things of them, so I'm not constantly buying a million little things of spices. I like having them in large quantities like that.
Go there, spend $100 or more, and get 15% off with code TheLife15. Thank you so much for watching this show. If you love what we're doing, like this video, share, subscribe, ring the bell so that you can help us get the message out there. If you really love what we're doing, consider joining our Patreon at patreon.com/thelifewithluke. Is it just like a strange, perverse desire to be in front of the camera?
For me, yeah, but for you, you don't even like being in front of the camera. And I wouldn't call it perverse. I just say that it, this is why I think it's fun to like talk. I like hearing other people talk. I don't like just seeing myself. All the stuff that I watch is just people talking about living in the ways I think are interesting or doing things I think I would like to do, etc.
Why do you think people like podcasts?
To me, things that I watch, you start to feel like you know the people. So it's like an extension of a friendship. Like, for example, you might not have in your circle somebody, let's say you like live in the city, but you have like a little house on the prairie heart. Like you want the chickens and you want the sourdough and you want the kids running out, but you don't live like that and you don't know anyone who does that. But you can go on YouTube and listen to two ladies talk who do that and break down how their day is, what they're learning, what's hard, what's easy. And you start to feel like you're friends with these people. And it like gives you a wider range of friends. It feels like you have a relationship. When you hear them talk for that many hours over that amount of time, you start to feel like you know people better than your own friends.
Do you think podcasts will last, or do you think this is a flash in a pan media?
It's funny because a podcast is like back to an older thing. People used to only listen to the radio for their entertainment, like hear people do the stories online. The family would gather around the radio and hear some political speech or whatever. And I think people like audio now because you can listen to it while you do something else. And I think that I hope it stays because I like the long form. There's all these clips and you got to do the shorts and blah, blah, blah. But like you can have a full conversation, at a time when everything is just some plucked out, extracted thing. We even don't like when people do that with the Bible. Like you pluck out a verse, you pluck out a soundbite. But
everything people used to watch on television was scripted before the reality television craze.
Yeah.
And it was all written by a stock of writers in basements across Studio City in Hollywood or New York and in West Village. And they were all bringing their own biases and opinions to bear. And it shaped the country and it shaped the world. Mm-hmm. And now podcasts have broken the mold of that. They are now us, random people from Ohio, here basically writing our own conversations in real time. And so we've taken out the writers, we've taken out the scripting so that things are more true and more real. Mm-hmm. And so people are getting an actual like taste and flavor of someone's life. And so
Yes.
what we are trying to do with this podcast, I think, is we're trying to curate this group of people that we're serving up to you guys. And that's our job. We need to do a good job. We need to take it seriously, and we need to select the people that will help tell the story of all the Torah-observant believers out there. And or something that we're hoping to get into this year, I think more, is we would like to interview experts who can help bolster either your arguments or your understanding of the laws of Yah.
Yeah.
Is that what you think?
I would love to do more of that. And that's what I love so much about The Way and the Christmas question, is it was a mix of people's, like lay people's stories and historians and scientists who are corroborating these things, not because they have a dog in the fight. I think that's what makes those things more powerful. Because, you know, your friend or your family can be like, well, yeah, you think it. Does anyone else smart think it? You know, and then that's, I think, can be really helpful.
Yeah,
Yep.
I agree. So, all right. Katie has a list of questions from you guys, and we're going to talk about them.
I guess we just started. You just kind of tricked me, I guess.
Yeah.
He started asking me
Sorry,
a question.
baby.
You just straight up started. So jarring. Should we
We
talk
don't
about?
need to do an intro.
Should we talk about these?
No, we'll just say welcome to the live podcast.
Cheers.
And this is just soda water with pomegranate juice in
Little
it.
mocktail.
I'm not drinking for a while. I am joining my friend who had like a drinking problem for years, and I'm not drinking with him. So hopefully it'll be good for him. And, you know, it's more productive not to be drinking, I think. I don't know. I thought I would be way more productive if I stopped drinking for a while. And I don't know if I have been.
You've been super productive. You're up at the crack of dawn.
I'm not up at the crack of dawn. I want to be up
The
at the crack of dawn.
almost crack of dawn. Most days. Our whole family was sick for a minute, so that kind of, it sets you back when your body's still trying to get what it needs. But
Yeah.
yeah, you've been doing it. You've been doing a lot.
Well, there's a lot to do. What are some of the questions that these people have?
Well, one of them kind of, you started talking about podcasting, so we can do this one. This is from Gus. Is this from the Gus we know? Hi, Gus. Let's just pretend it's from him. I think it is.
I'm sure it is.
He says, do you vet information from guests for accuracy? And if so, how?
That's a great question. No. I mean, the only vetting that happens is before the interview. So, and that would be whether we interview the person or not, whether we select them or we don't select them. And if we select them, the vetting process is over. We other than doing research into, you know, what they are doing and who they are. But they may say things, and they do say things that we don't agree with, that that may not be doctrinally accurate. And if it's not 100% bizarre and out of context, then we leave it in. If it is, we do edit some things out.
There have been a handful of times where I feel not comfortable, like airing a thought that's not even central to the conversation, but to me seems errant, or to you seems errant on our platform. It's a weird thing of like, you want to be responsible with where you direct people's attention, like to somebody's ministry or to a thought or idea, but also it's a conversation. We're not like some monolithic thing, and you know, no one agrees about every single point.
That's the thing. Most of the time, when someone has a differing opinion than us, it's not world-shattering, and so we just don't cut it. We just leave it. I mean, that's their opinion. Just because they're on the podcast does not mean that our views align with theirs. I know that is the old disclaimer that everyone has to give, and we don't give it enough. But yes, all our views don't necessarily align with all the people we interview. The reason we interview people is that they are Torah observant, unless they're experts in a specific field, and we think that they're doing something that's helpful to some part of the community, or great, or awesome, or commendable. And so that's why we interview people. And they may be totally disagreeing with us about a lot of other things, but if they are doing something great that needs to have light shown on it, shined on it, then that's how we go.
Yeah.
That's a great question because that's the reality of how it works. This episode of the Life Podcast is sponsored by Shepherd's Crook Coffee. If you go to shepherdscrookcoffee.com, you'll get 25% off your first order with code THELIFE. You may not know this because I haven't shared it on the podcast, but I'm really into coffee. Here in rural Ohio, I'm very limited on finding organic dark roast coffee beans. And so at Kroger's, my options are pre-ground Pete's dark roast and Death Wish whole bean, but the beans are all crumbled up, and there's an evil skull on the front of the bag, and it's $20 a bag. My mom won't buy Death Wish coffee because of the skull. Shepherd's Crook Coffee is a Torah-Observant coffee roasting small business that only buys organic beans. Some of the beans they buy are not certified organic, but owners Greg and Laura make sure that the growers are following organic processes, whether they're too small to have the certification or not. Getting you the healthy beans that you want at $11.99 a bag. Plus, with the 25% off that you get with code THELIFE, it's $8.99 a bag, and it's glorious. Look at this coffee. Look at the crema on this thing. It's gorgeous. These are the options I see. 1, support evil Starbucks with their evil pagan mermaid. Or you can support a Torah-run, family-owned business that will ship you fresh roasted beans directly to your door for pretty much the same price. $8.99 with this 25% off code. Make sure you get enough for your whole Shabbat group. Get the big bags, baby. Go to shepherdscrookcoffee.com. Put in code THELIFE for 25% off.
Hannah asks, are you still living, not your sister Hannah, are you still living in your tiny house in Ohio? I'd love for an update.
Yes,
Tour.
Hannah, we are living in the tiny house in Ohio. You can see a tour of the tiny house if you go to Katie's Instagram.
Yeah, I think it's way back in my Facebook if you troll the depths, but don't do that.
What's your Instagram?
My Instagram is Kayte Grace Music. That's what I used to have when I was playing music. Why are you smiling?
Because people probably don't know that you used to be playing music.
Don't get into that stuff. No, I enjoy the music. I just feel like, why was I wearing that? I'm way more prudish now. It wasn't crazy or anything. Anyway, my Instagram is just like a family photo album type deal. And it's Kayte, I'm Kayte, Grace Music. And if you scroll back just a little bit, I think when we first moved into the tiny house, my brother did a little video tour. So you can see what that looked like.
That's probably the best. Now there's 3 kids in there, and so it's really hard to keep it clean.
It looks so bare when I look at that photo, because we had Max. He was almost 3 when we moved in the tiny house, and I was pregnant with Sam, our second son. And we hadn't installed the wood stove yet. The furniture was a little bit configured differently, and just we hadn't moved in all our stuff. Plus, winter versus summer looks way different in the tiny house because of all the coats and the bibs and the blah.
Yeah, so yes, we are on a tiny house, in the tiny house, and we are currently putting a driveway up our hill because we have 15 acres of land. And so behind our house, we have a new driveway going in, and we are putting in a normal house, a normal size house. We have saved money, and we're finally building a house.
I'm going to miss the tiny house, though. It's a little bit... It's so exciting to think about it, decorating it and Pinterest and what's the vibe. But also I think, I love the tiny house. It's going to be so sad to move out. You guys, let me brag about Luke a little bit because he never will. He built the tiny house out of wood and wires and all the plumbing, all the electrical, all the solar.
It's tiny. It's easy.
It's
off easy
grid.
to build, relatively
I'm just going to
easy.
keep bragging. Every time the Amazon delivery guy comes up, he's like, oh my gosh, your house is so cute. And I'm like, thanks, my husband made it.
This other house will be a significantly larger project. Mm-hmm. We did also, people probably don't know this, we built another cabin that we would rent out. Some people out there in the audience have stayed in it. Bill.
Yes, they were the first guests.
Yeah.
Right?
The Grammonses.
Yes. Bill and Michelle.
Yeah, Bill and Michelle. And anyway, well, we sold that cabin, and that's part of why we can build a normal house.
Running an Airbnb Torah-Observant was very interesting. It's just a side note, but do any of you guys run an Airbnb just out of curiosity?
The coolest thing about Airbnb is you can block off dates like Shabbat where people cannot check in.
Yes.
And so they have to check in on Fridays, and you could make minimum stay of 2 days, and so then they are checking out on Sundays. And a lot of it you can do hands off too, where you can do the code.
Automated.
Yeah.
And I started to put in our welcome message, we do keep Shabbat, so unless there's some crazy emergency, we'll get back to you after Shabbat, like if you have a question. But really, it hardly ever happened that anyone, I don't know if anyone ever needed anything. Maybe if the power went out in the area or something just before Shabbat. But I was kind of concerned about that before we started the Airbnb. Like, are we going to have to be dealing with stuff?
That's a concern. I mean, with any business, there is the concern of how will you handle Shabbat. And that we had to figure out and confront.
Yep.
And then even with hiring contractors for doing this build, I mean, we have to tell them ahead of time. And, that's something I've learned. Like, maybe people are interested in this. When I first started being Torah-Observant, I was not always as quick to be upfront about Shabbat with contractors.
Yeah.
And so then it would sometimes surprise them when I would say, don't schedule anything for Shabbat, because I would tell them too late or something. And so that I finally learned to just say, before anything is even signed, anyone's hired, I say, hey, Friday night sundown to Saturday night sundown, I don't employ people. I think that it's breaking God's commandments to do it. I'm not Seventh-day Adventist, but this is what I believe. It's so funny. I thought about like a meme that we haven't made yet, but I wanted to say, I'm not Seventh-day Adventist, but I keep Saturday, the seventh day, as my Sabbath. I'm not Jehovah's Witness, but I don't celebrate Christmas. And then go through the whole list of all the different things.
I'm not Jewish, but I love Passover.
I'm not Jewish, but I eat kosher, quote unquote, or biblically clean.
That would be really funny. I never thought of it.
And it's all just,
you just do all
Torah,
the peculiarities.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
So anyway. All that to say is that if you are upfront and quick and right when the relationship begins, when the business relationship begins with contractors or business partners, then it won't surprise them, and then they plan for it. So like our guy, Jared, came to do the driveway on Sunday, and he even called me and said, I know you don't want me to come there on Saturday, so I'm going to come there before church on Sunday. So it's interesting. I don't want him to be working on his Sabbath day, but he evidently thinks that's okay. So anyway, I think that being upfront about it makes it so that there's no weird situations where people are like, well, this is not going to work for my schedule. I have to work on Saturday.
Yes, what you're saying is so true. If you bring it up before you're in the thick of it, it allows the conversation to be very low stakes because nothing's scheduled, nothing's set. It's not inconveniencing someone, and now you have to say it, and it feels heavy. It's also true for dating. I remember back in the day, you guys, when me and my girlfriends were like talking to guys or whatever, and they'd be like, well, he's great, but I don't know about his faith yet. Like, we just started talking. I'm like, you need to figure that out right away. And if you like have no idea where he's coming from, he's probably not that strong in his faith anyway. But sooner the better, you know?
Yeah, because then the contractor or business partner or the person you're dating can say, well, I think this is crazy and I'm not going to enter into this agreement with you. We're not going to start
waste time
working together. But as long as that's out in the open and up front, okay, that's sorted out. And that's how, I think as these things become part of your life and, they become part of who you are, then more and more, it's just natural. And it becomes easier that way. You're not surprising people. Same thing with the annual Sabbaths.
Yep.
Because you're also not working on those annual Sabbaths. So, man, when you're employed by an employer, you got to know those things, and employer is even more difficult situation than contractors.
Right.
Because you got to say it right up front.
It's interesting. Just have the calendar event talking about those dates.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
What's next?
Who's someone you're hoping to have on the life, but you haven't lined it up yet? Do you have anybody?
Yeah, there's a singer that you mentioned that I actually just reached out to named Melody Joy.
Oh yeah, she
Wasn't
seems cool. Do you guys know about her?
She has
She's
a really good voice.
Gorgeous voice.
She's Torah-Observant,
Yeah.
and she just has really
She's a worship
good
leader, I think.
voice, and she's
Like a
praises
young
on
family.
YouTube. That's like her YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
So Melody Joy Williams, that's her name.
If you guys know her, tell her to come on. Also, Paul Wilbur.
Oh my gosh.
Do you guys know him? Does anybody know Paul Wilbur?
Yeah.
You know what's so silly?
That seems like a shot in the dark. He's so
I know,
big.
he's big and he's busy. Whenever I start to say Paul Wilbur, I can't even say the word. I always start saying David Wilbur, and you're like, I don't think you mean David Wilbur. Hi, David Wilbur. I don't know if you're watching, but
Yep.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, it would be great to interview
Wilburs.
Paul Wilbur. You know, my mom started doing Hebrew dance.
To his music, right?
Yeah, to his music long before she was Torah-Observant. Like back when we were going to a church 10 miles from here, she was teaching Hebrew dance, and they were listening to Paul Wilbur music.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a big thing for her. And now she is Torah-Observant, and now she's still listening to Paul Wilbur.
I have a couple others. One that's like more an expert interview is this woman who wrote this book, not Torah-Observant. I think she's a Christian though, called Opt Out Family. Have you guys read this book? She used to like have a huge social media presence and stuff, and then she just pulled out of all of that because she saw like the dark underbelly of the online world and the tech companies. She wrote a book about how to basically extract your family offline and how to generate an engaging, exciting life without any of that stuff, using the methods that the tech people use to keep you addicted to online. She's like, well, let's just put these methods into play offline. It's a really interesting book. And then, there's a midwife we know that we want to get on, but I'm not sure she's going to go for it. But there's another book that I read called Holy Labor. I have all the girl topics. It was so cool because it was like a theology of childbirth, and it extracted all the Bible verses, all the scripture, which is so much, like just mentions of pregnancy and birth and gestation, and also prophecy related to it. And she like laid out all this cool thread throughout the Bible, and I read it during 2 of my pregnancies, and it was really interesting. So
She's a slow reader.
what? No, I read it once during the one pregnancy, and then again during the other one. I didn't read it over the course of like 6 years.
So, okay, question then, since she brought up girl topics. In the Patreon calls, someone, because I mentioned, man, it would be cool to have like Kayte and other women on like a panel, similar to The View, only not so woke and evil. And
they had a good title. What was their idea for a title?
Someone on Patreon said The Few. Call it The Few.
That's cute.
And what do you guys think of that? Does anyone interested in a version of The View? Like, I don't know how often Kayte could do it.
I don't know.
But Kayte would be hosting it with someone else. Also, if you think this is a good idea and you want to be with Kayte hosting it with her.
We'll be holding auditions.
Yeah,
Send
maybe
your tape.
we'll do auditions.
Ooh, I can make some new friends.
I think it would be a revolving co-host, maybe. But I don't know. Maybe you'll hit it off with someone and it would be... But the idea would be to cover these sorts of questions and... I don't know. What else?
Yeah, I think another good topic that maybe ladies think about a lot is... that just needs to be an episode to me is feasts and family. How do you navigate the immediate family, the grandparents extended with... the feasts and that you are doing, and then the ones that you maybe are no longer doing, and just navigating all of that. I think that could be a helpful episode for some people.
And homeschooling and raising children and
not murdering your sourdough starter.
Whatever.
I don't know. There's stuff.
So, yeah. I don't know. Let us know what you guys think about that. Otherwise, we'll just scrap it.
There's a lot of this might get a little bit too into like theological stuff than we like to do on the podcast, but there's a lot of like women laws. Like after the baby's born, you stay away for, not stay away, but like you have your period of like being sequestered or whatever. There's just some stuff that to me seems like it can possibly still be applied. Like I know that we've talked about that and come to our own conclusions, but it's just interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, you're gonna have to be
that one's a little dicey.
Less candid about that if you do this podcast.
No, I'm scared to do that one. I'll let somebody else do that, but
more candid. Mm-hmm. All right, let's hear next question.
How do you organize your days / work days, and what's a typical day or week look like for you, Luke? And also for me.
Goodness. Okay, so right now I'm preparing the farm. It's not really a farm at this point because we only have a cat.
We've had so many cats, you guys. It's so sad. They just I don't know.
So in order to answer this question, I got to tell you, basically, short answer is I split my time between doing stuff for this business, Align the Stars Media, where I'm either writing a book or putting together a documentary project, which I have not done in a while and need to, or doing freelance stuff, which I've done more in the past, or doing the podcast. So I'm either doing one of those things, working for somebody else as a freelancer or working on a project for us. And so that's what I do the majority of the time. And then as much time as I can fit in, I work on this farm, this fledgling farm that we have. So right now I'm just building a big fence and preparing for our first animals for sheep that we're getting. I hope that we don't just get out. I hope the sheep survive.
I know. Oh, I know.
And we're getting 2 sheepdogs. So it's like in 2 weeks. We're getting this at the end of the month. So we still have to finish the fence, get the sheepdogs in order.
I'm scared of animals, you guys. How did I end up on a farm? If anyone has tips about how to not be scared of animals, I just don't know what they're going to do next. I like the idea of like, ooh, chickens. Like we go through so many eggs or like lamb. But I saw a YouTube video of a lamb. And I looked at its little face and I thought, oh, what if we get attached? I guess that's just what happens. It'll be a reality check.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen
toughen
here.
up.
We'll see. So we're trying to just make this little bit of land we have productive in some way. And so for a long time, we were just letting it like have Sabbaths and not plant anything because it's been under production in soybeans and or corn for the last 150 years, probably, likely without Sabbaths. So when we bought it, we started giving it Sabbaths, like back Sabbaths to rest. And I thought that having animals on there to replenish the land would help.
Yep.
I actually did not think about this at all. I didn't think about giving the land Sabbaths at all when we first bought it. I mean, maybe a little.
Maybe you did.
But when we got the soil tested and the soil testing company recommended 20 years of non-production on the land. What did they call it? 20 years like recovery or something.
You're like, whoa, that sounds like you're trying to make up the Shabbats.
Yeah. So we started doing it. We started just I planted a bunch of rye and then we just cut it down later after it grew up, or we tilled it back in.
Yeah.
And so we didn't take anything off of the land for a long time. And then we made hay once or twice. More recently,
I had a garden a couple times.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't do anything large scale. That was just small, like a vegetable.
And so now we're going to have the sheep on there to hopefully poop everywhere and help replenish the grass, and we'll move them. So
and the orchard. You put the orchard in.
Oh, yeah, we have an orchard also.
Apples.
Yeah.
Cider apples.
Yeah, hard cider. And so we'll have, but I want to help replenish that soil too. But yeah, that's an interesting topic, like talking about regenerative farming and the importance of the Sabbath years to land.
I feel like that would be an easy one to do a podcast episode on because everyone's talking about that right now. It dovetails with the health world a lot because people are talking about, you know, the holistic health and then like nutrients. And then they're like, oh, well, the food doesn't hardly have any nutrients because the soil is depleted. And why is the soil depleted? Because we haven't been farming in a scriptural way forever.
I want metrics on this food depletion, like of minerals. I want to know how many minerals were in the corn or the grain or the fruits before years ago. Have we recorded this? What were they?
That's what I've heard. I've heard people say like they had like an orange back in the 50s. And they're like,
did they test it?
This is how much vitamin C you get from an orange. And then they'll do it now and it'll be like way less or something. Yeah, and I would like to know if that's true or not.
I'd like to know if that's true or not. It sounds not true to me.
Really?
Yeah, it sounds not
It
true.
makes sense to me that if the soil is like dead and depleted, where would the vegetable be getting that stuff from? Or is it just generated in the process of the plant growing?
Or how can
what I
it
mean?
look so beautiful and not have all the right?
Well, it's like, you know how if you have a good, like one of your dad's tomatoes versus like a gross mealy tomato from
That's
the
true.
store, he's been enriching his soil forever naturally, like that poop looking compost tea that he puts on it for years and years and all that stuff. And it tastes way better. I feel like that has to do with
Yeah, my
that
dad
should
is a
mean
really good
something.
gardener, by the way.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
His stuff is like Garden of Eden. Right.
So that's something I'm interested in is finding metrics for the mineral depletion in the soil and comparing it to whatever testing we did a century ago, whenever they were doing testing. That's interesting to me.
Me too. So, okay, wait, but back to like, how do you structure your day and your week? You're talking about you have like the production company work and then you have the farm work or the outdoor whatever.
Yeah, so if it's freezing, I'll do inside work. And like it's freezing, right? It's 1 degree or 4 degrees or whatever it is right now. And so in that case, I will do more editing and more podcast recording and more interviews and that sort of thing. And then as soon as there's a window, I'll start building the fence again, or I'll start doing whatever the farm thing is again.
Yep.
It would be nice to eventually be on the other side of this and not have so much farm work, but I don't know if that's going to happen. But yeah, that's it. I mean, either working on podcast stuff or the life stuff or other things, or I'm working on the farm.
Yeah. It seems like you like to do all of the creative, like if you're writing a book or something, all the creative thinking, that sort of thing early in the morning. You like never do that in the afternoon. You always, even if you're doing both things in one day, you'll do that stuff in the morning, break for lunch or whatever, and then you'll shift to like the outdoor work.
Yeah.
Because your brain's freshest then.
Yeah. And sometimes I want to be doing outdoor work and I can't because I just have to do the inside stuff.
Okay.
So that's the answer. What's next?
Oh, they asked about mine.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
I just basically have our day with the kids every day. The only day that's different is Tuesday when the kids, the boys, the older two, go to Luke's mom's for a play date with their cousin, and she keeps them from like breakfast to like mid-afternoon, and they just play all day on the farm. And that is kind of like my computer work day, but it's morphed a little bit into like, I just like to slow clean the house and like put on a podcast or whatever. But if I have to, I often on the Tuesdays when the boys are gone, I just have the baby listen to the upcoming week's podcast episode.
To
like
edit.
preview, edit, and then to start to think about the title and the thumbnail and if there are any edits. Hardly ever are there. Well, but that's kind of fun to hear them all early. Meow.
She does. She does catch things like, or if we meant to cut something and I miss it in editing, then Katie will usually catch it on her. I mean, if you ever see those in the final episode, it means we both missed it.
Yep.
Like the cough she just did. Hopefully that was out.
Hopefully you cut that cough. They're like, what cough?
Maybe I'll have to leave it in now.
No!
If we left the cough in, it's because we both missed it.
Don't leave my cough. No, but we have our like rhythm. It's so different. I'm into like reading nonfiction and like the optimizing your life. And for a long time, I think that a lot of women have tried to put productivity systems made for office people on your home life. And it just does not work like that. Especially when your kids are little. I think maybe as they get older, you can start to do more of that stuff. But I've seen this trend of moms being like, instead of having this hard, rigid schedule, we have a flow. We have a sequence. And our life is kind of like that. It's like a sequence. We have like the breakfast and the Bible time. We have the chores. And then we have story and snack. And then we like go into our school day. Then the middle child is taking a nap after lunch. And I do some of the other more concentrated work with our older son.
Because they're homeschooled.
Yeah, because they're homeschooled. And then in the afternoon, it's kind of, they play, etc. And I'm like making the dinner. And we just have our rhythm. And then sometimes throughout the day you text me like, can you look something up or post this or something to do with the podcast, and I'll try to like piece those in. The best days are when I have my phone in airplane mode till like lunch, or when I don't do any like looking at email and stuff like that, because it's like the kids can feel it when they're getting half attention. Everyone can feel it. No one likes that. And it's just nice to have that not be an option at all. I don't always do that, but it always goes better. You can connect. And then later in the day, they seem to play more independently and just be happy. And they play together a ton and stuff too. But that's kind of how our days are going lately.
That's great, Bob.
It's fun. I'm enjoying it. We stop and put on a song and clean up the tiny house. Living in a tiny house is interesting, you guys. It's not like you can just, and maybe some of you live in small places so you get this, but you can't just like leave the mess in the playroom and then come out to a different area where you're doing school. It's like, this is the room. So if we're going to do anything else, this needs to be wiped clean and start over. And so the boys like to pick a song. Like they like to pick the song that we put on while we do like a 5-minute clean or whatever. And we all just like clean like crazy people. And then we're like, wow, back to square one. And we can do the next thing.
That's cool.
I like it.
Good
We're
job.
gonna miss the tiny house. We'll never leave.
Hopefully.
Okay.
Anyway.
Hey, the person who wrote that question, it's a French name, and their name is Clément. We know a person named Clément in France.
Clément
How
Claire.
interesting. Okay. Sarah asks, I'm trying to start a film/prop business. And I was just wondering how you all use social media like YouTube or your website to promote your videos and products. And how often do you have to stay up to date with new content to keep people interested?
Read it again.
She wants to start a film/prop business. How do you use social media to promote your videos and your products? How do you keep people interested? Like, how frequently are you?
Goodness.
I don't know if we're great at this.
We're not doing it very well, honestly. Sorry, we're the wrong people to ask. But we know what to do.
We're just not doing it.
You should, at minimum, be posting something every day, evidently. And we have tons of content in these podcasts. We should be posting in short forms every day. And so that's kind of our goal. And maybe we'll start doing that more this year. Since it's not the production of the actual material, it has fallen to the wayside for us, sadly.
Yeah.
But that is what we do. You know, the thing is, I do not think that any business, I know that they should be posting on social media. They should do this stuff. But I really just feel like if you don't have anything beneficial to say besides pitching your services, then don't add to the noise of this great ether out there.
I kind of agree.
Because everyone is adding to the noise. Even the shorts that we would do would be in some way adding to the noise. I hope that any short video that we release, it has some kind of point or call to action, or it piques someone's interest in either the Torah or something, something important. And so if you are, for example, doing interviews and you have all these different moments, these highlights that you want to call people's attention to, that's one way you could hopefully deliver something beneficial into the great void. But if you're only finding ways to like look at your prop company or your video production company and try and spin things so that you can basically be releasing ads every day, then I don't think that is what most people are interested in. I mean,
you can feel disposable content.
Yeah.
You can feel, because the social media machine is like this hungry beast. Someone's going to be like, she said beast, mark of the beast. No, it is like a hungry beast. And the more people who are on there trying to create an audience or something like that, generate attention, it's noisy. And then you have to do more and more so that you don't get forgotten or whatever. And so you're just like pumping out all this stuff constantly. And I personally don't like that. I don't like feeling like you have to just be like every day, like this frenetic thing. I like it when you have
more extreme.
Yeah.
And so what we try to, because that's what many people do, is they not only do a lot of content, but they try and do the most extreme things they can to get people's attention, because that's what gets people's
economy.
attention.
Absolutely.
However, if you make something that is relevant and helpful to people for all time, if you will, which many people call evergreen content,
Yep.
then it will speak for itself with or without social media.
True.
And if you have those things, these interesting, evergreen, helpful bits of content or long pieces of content, then people will want them and they will find them, and other people will find them because they will share them with each other.
Yeah.
So that's, I'm not very good at this, so I'm not the one to answer, but that's been my approach.
I have a tip for this.
Okay.
This is something that came up when we were launching our Airbnb and we were having an Instagram for it. And we were trying to think about what do we post on this Instagram. Well, at first, Luke and, our brother-in-law, Paul were just building it. So we have like construction photos. So it's like we could go really in depth with like construction photos and the process, and here are the drawings and the sketches. But I realized that construction photos are going to attract the attention of people who were interested in building their own Airbnbs. But what we wanted were people who were interested in coming to this area on vacation. That's who we want. So it's like, think about what your customer is looking for, because it's not always the first thing that you know what I mean? It's not the first thing you think. Like, we don't need to be posting construction photos. We need to be posting, like, this is a great hike, like if you're coming for your anniversary, and then a coffee shop to go to after. Like, these are resources for people coming to this area, and just trying to think about what would be helpful for a traveler. So like,
But what, oh yeah, go ahead.
Film and prop business.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who's using, what you're doing? And then what do they need? Like, what are they Googling? Are you in a position to teach something in that realm,
Or
or just answer a
props,
question?
show them off in the videos. Make short films and show them off to show off the props. I mean, that would be interesting, entertaining, and also it would help you sell the props.
Yep.
I mean, yeah. I don't, I'm bad at this. I have no idea, honestly. There's the answer.
What are your people Googling? And then just be like, what are they trying to figure out? Because obviously your business is solving a problem for someone. And so, yeah.
All right, next question.
But yeah, just to wrap this up, I resist the frantic pace of the constant posting, but it's like you kind of have to do it.
Yeah, we don't like it, but evidently it works. I mean, we don't have the largest audience on earth, and many people who have larger audiences are posting much more often than us.
Oh, sure.
And so listen to them.
Yeah. Yeah, I do want to learn more about that. And also I will just say, before the live podcast, we didn't have any regular communication with all you guys. We would post on Facebook every once in a while, but we weren't like every single week or month or day even like saying something. We would kind of just say, hey, we're working on a new project now, and then be talking about that. And I think maybe people would find out about it through the crowdfunding process or the releasing of a trailer, because that's like your, skill set. So we would use that.
Yeah. Yeah, anyone who is interested would take part. I mean, that's how it's been for us.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys have, this is from Eric. Do you guys have a weekly fellowship that you attend? I'm in Kentucky and would love to visit if it's not too far away.
Yeah. Yeah, reach out to us. What's the email?
It's just their name. It's just...
No, what's our email?
Oh, what's our email?
Give him an email.
What do you mean? Oh, okay.
Give him an email that he can reach us on.
That's so funny. Email life. You can do the lifewithluke@gmail.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, thelifewithluke@gmail.com. Reach out to us. We meet in Southern Ohio. Mm-hmm. We started the group with my family, my mom, brother, sisters, before my other sister moved away.
Yeah.
And so we have a small home fellowship. That's what we do.
Very intimate.
Yes, it's been fun. It's been fun.
It's great. Yeah, it's great. It's growing. It's fun. Are you going to pre-screen, Eric?
Yeah. We're
going to pre-screen you, Eric. You better not be psycho.
Anyone who reaches out to us, I or one of the other men in the group will meet for coffee so that we can make sure that they aren't like a Nazi transgender.
Oh, dude, there was one in California. That's why he's saying that. He's not just making that up.
Yeah, in Southern California, when we lived in Ventura, someone on the 119 map was a cross-dressing Nazi. And they were on there. And we
very
knew that because we
odd.
saw them on the Facebook.
Very
we saw
odd.
on Facebook that they proudly and prominently were having the swastika flag, and they were men dressing like women with wigs, blonde
pretty
wigs.
extreme.
Like uber mensch women. It was crazy, man. And so ever since our group in Ventura, like Oxnard area, saw that one guy, we thought, all right, because that guy emailed us, I think, right?
Something.
Or did we just see him on the map?
Maybe we saw him on the map.
Anyway, yeah, I think we just
Because we're
saw
like,
him
who
on
else
the map.
is nearby?
Yeah, well,
You're like, that.
we need to find people to
creature.
fellowship with. Well, maybe we're being bigots to not want to fellowship with the cross-dressing Nazis.
That person
but...
needed some deep remediation. But
Anyway, ever since then, we've met up with the people that want to visit beforehand, and just so that we can, meet them, make sure they're not
before they're around
cross-dressing
everyone's
Nazis.
kids and in your house, because we're not in a third party space yet. But also the good thing is that we have like some basic beliefs, like we believe the Bible, like we believe some basic stuff, and so you're able to like hand them this kind of bare bones
Statement
list,
of faith.
so that they're not fellowshipping with us forever, and then all of a sudden they're like, "You believe what?" It's like what the basic stuff is. You're not blindsided, so it's good for them too.
It's good for them. Make
'Cause they
sure
can be like-
we're on the same page
Yeah.
about the tree trunk issues of religion, of belief.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
I think that's mutually.
So we'd love to meet
beneficial.
with you. Reach out to us. We will go to coffee at some point. Hopefully we're not too far away. That's the other problem. If we're so far away, it's hard to like get together for anything before
Yes.
the Shabbat. But
Yeah.
let's try and make it happen.
Yep.
And then, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Totally different. Switching gears. Somebody named Wolfgang. Cool name. I'm gonna just sum up. But they are kind of asking, which has to do with the calendar event yesterday. How big of a deal is the calendar? It's hard to say if I'm making a big deal out of a small thing or not. What do you guys think?
How big? That's the question. How big of a
They
deal
have
is
a
the
whole
calendar?
thing beforehand. Like they had a calendar they were keeping, but then they were thinking about keeping the Jewish calendar because it makes it easier for planning with their employment, and they have friends that keep it.
Okay, I have my perspective on
They're not
this.
sure about switching. How big of a deal is it to switch or not switch?
Okay, I will give you my perspective. I think that you should definitely keep the days and the calendar that you are convinced is accurate. Some people will not agree with me, and they'll say, oh, do what's convenient for the group or for you or for your employer. But I think in all matters of religion and faith, where you have a set of beliefs that you're convinced of to be true, and it's your personal religious beliefs, that it doesn't matter if it's convenient for your employer or anyone else. What matters is what do you think are the days that Yah wants to meet with you, and which days do you think are the annual Sabbaths? Because we all most of us agree on the weekly Sabbaths, and that's pretty easy to tell the employer. But when it comes to the annual Sabbaths, which I would say are no less important, then we should at least be convinced of whichever calendar it is that we choose. So I would not choose a calendar like Hillel out of convenience. If you feel like you're convinced that the Sanhedrin was correct in its rulings of these dates, like Joseph Good was talking about in the calendar event we had, and that we don't have the place to make those rulings ourselves, then do that. But if you are convinced of another calendar that you think is likely what Yeshua was keeping, maybe, or what you think is accurate, I would say spend the time trying to figure it out. That's why we did the calendar event, and then go with what you're convinced of. If you end up being convinced of Hillel, which is the popular one, you can tell your work, and they'll be like, oh, they just doing what the Jewish people are doing.
Right.
They're doing what Judaism is doing, Orthodox
But
Judaism.
they can look at their calendar and see it, like, oh yeah, I see what day is your path. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? There's that. It feels like a little bit more legitimate. Sometimes it's funny when you're saying like, I do Passover, and then people in your life might be like, on the day that's on their calendar, Passover, oh look, happy Passover, well-meaning. But then you have to explain, well, I don't do it on that day. And then it's like, well, what are you doing? You know?
You don't have to explain that.
Well,
you
you
can
might-
keep it for
yeah.
yourself. You don't have to always be like, it's just like when someone says Merry Christmas, you don't always have to say, I don't celebrate Christmas and I think it's pagan. You can say thank you or something like that. And if someone says Happy Passover and it's not your Passover, you don't have to say, actually, that's not the Passover date that I've landed upon. You don't.
Yeah,
You can just say thank you very much. It's very kind of you that you actually realize that I try and celebrate the feast of the Lord, of Yah. And so thank you. Thank you for that. And you don't have to get into the intricate details because no one knows and no one cares. What they know about and care about is you. They know and they care about you, and they know you so well that they think that they want to take the time to say, hey, I know this guy celebrates these things that no one else does, and I see this on the calendar. I'm going to text him or call him. So just say thank you. But yeah, that's my advice on that. But I would say definitely be convinced in your mind. I mean, I think that's how it is with everything.
Yeah.
People come to all different conclusions about all different laws, even after they come into the Torah. And some people are like, I will only wear linen. I will only wear wool. I will not wear mixed fabrics. And some people say, I will only not wear mixed linen and wool. You know, the people land on all sorts of different things. I say you just be fully convinced in your own mind. And yes, it takes some time. And yes, that's why we did the calendar event, because we wanted to help at least present the most popular calendars. I mean, some people were asking why we didn't have X or Y calendar. It's because we did a poll, and in the poll, 100% of the people were practicing these 4 calendars. Now,
some variants of,
And we got 150 plus respondents.
It's
not like we did not get enough to have it be an actual, snapshot of
significant. Yeah.
But we got as close as we could. And so we went with those calendars.
Yeah. I would say, as far as how big I agree. I defer to you on this, but it's important that God has special days to meet with us. I think it's not something to like have these contentions or looking down on other people about what their thing is. I don't think it's something that we should use to wield with other Torah-observant people, like, oh, you're not. You know what I mean? It's not like that. I don't think it's a thing where we should be like that. I think.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
Just like with the Lindsay Woolsey thing. I'm not going to be like, that guy he wears polyester. What a evil man.
Right.
No, it's the same thing. He thinks polyester's fine. Someone else thinks then it's not. Who cares? Just get on to the main things and move the word and the Great Commission forward. That's the plan. That's
Meeting
how we go.
with people is nice too, though. I mean, not just nice, but also kind of commanded. So if you can, like you mentioned in the event, if you can find a way to do that on your day or on another day, that seems to be really important.
Yeah, and so for me, I just say keep it on the one that you think it is, and if you want to meet with your local group, meet with them too. If they're on a different calendar, meet with them too.
This is another question also from Wolfgang. You ready? Totally different. Another thing that we're wrestling with is where to draw the line on movies and video games. We have Torah-keeping friends who are so strict they won't watch or play anything. We have friends that will watch or play some things as long as they don't contain references to magic or immoral behavior. My wife and I are not sure how to apply the word to make good boundaries without throwing out nearly all TV, movies, and video games. What do you guys think?
I would say, what's the downside of throwing out all movies, TV, and video games? Are you just going to be bored staring at your belly button? Maybe you should be bored. Maybe your children should be bored for a second. Maybe they shouldn't have a constant barrage of 600 frames a second of these bizarre, large-eyed animations, like screaming at one another. Maybe there's a time when you should be dusting off the chessboard with your 7-year-old, your young child. Maybe they should learn how to play checkers. Maybe they should learn how to play war. Maybe they should learn that they have such thing as an imagination and that they need to be using it. I mean, this is yes, it's totally pretty far on the ban everything side, and I don't practice it. completely.
We don't ban everything, no.
Although with our firstborn son, our original son, with our firstborn son, I had the same question, and I said, well, an easy rule of thumb for me is no entertainment after like 1950. And so he grew up watching only John Wayne movies and very early movies. And even those we had to curate a little because even those weren't quite always kid friendly. But so he grew up wanting to be a cowboy with the cowboy gun and cowboy everything.
Telling people in Aldi his name was John Wayne.
Yeah,
I'm like, no, that's not his name, but he's really obsessed.
Yeah. So that was good, I think, for him. And the reason is because I knew that as time went on, and I observed that as time went on, we went from Mickey Mouse cartoons with their 24 frames a second and their, I don't know, 0 cuts a minute, where you're just watching the Steamboat Willie like whistling with the same steady camera for a minute more, to now we have whatever Steamboat Willie with 1,000 cuts a second, where it's like bum 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 bum, and the kid is so overly stimulated that. But when the kid gets used to then being overly stimulated, then Steamboat Willie is boring and he won't even watch it.
Let alone a page of black and white letters in a book.
Yeah. So that's why we wanted the old school black and white, few cuts, boring thing. But I understand that you want to be entertained and you have worked a long time that day and you don't want to have to like play chess with your son every evening and you want to be entertained as well. So I mean, for us, that worked. You might be able to do 1960s and earlier, but it starts getting all, free love by the 60s. And
beyond just the cuts and the effect that has on your attention span, it's who the characters are. They don't even make male heroes that are a certain way anymore. Like it's way less common. They feminized everything, and there's not some strong, resolute, I'm gonna stick to my, my guns, and I have my moral code,
Oh my gosh.
Everything's like feminized. It's toxic to be like protecting your community, like all that stuff.
Every hero is a woman.
So
it's like
she's
she's
beautiful, but she's also a ninja, and she like kills all the guys. I'm like, I don't want to see a girl fight. I'm old school, but so there's that too. There's the characters, but okay. At Sukkot, you guys, we had a juicy situation. It was actually really fun. We wanted to have a movie night one night at Sukkot. And so we're trying to think of what is the most innocuous possible movie. I'm not going to go into like full detail. But we thought of a movie that seemed incredibly innocuous.
Go ahead.
Mary Poppins. And there was a family, friends of ours, who were like, nope, no Mary Poppins. And so we had this crazy conversation about, what do you mean no Mary Poppins? Like, that is like synonymous with innocence.
Crazy. It was a very intriguing conversation.
I will say what I learned and what I took out from that conversation from that family, I loved. He said, the husband used to be a pilot. As a pilot, you learn how to fly in like normative circumstances, blue skies, not crazy winds, etc., until you have mastery over the plane. And then you start to introduce weather and factors, and like you're skilled enough to discern what to do in abnormal situations. And they said, with our children, we want to present them with normative stories, healthy families, like things in order, until they have the discernment to deal with more variables and more factors. And I was like, that makes sense to me.
And what was his rule of thumb when selecting the entertainment? Do you remember?
I don't know a specific thing. That's what I remember from that situation. But it's so interesting because so much stuff doesn't pass that test of like, even every like Disney movie, it seems like some parent dies at the beginning, or like the kid just starts out by disobeying, or a lot of not normative stuff.
His question is kind of like Occam's right. His question is, what does this promote and what is it glorifying?
Yeah.
So that is his. So maybe that's a good rule of thumb for you guys too. What does this bit of entertainment promote? Yeah. What is it glorifying? Is it glorifying? Like, he did not like, for example, in Lord of the Rings, when there's the female character that puts on the armor and goes and fights. Now, specifically, he didn't like it because a woman is not supposed to dress in the raiment of a man. And he said that armor is most definitely the raiment of a man. And when she's doing that, she's trying to take on the role of a man.
I guess Mulan is definitely out then, isn't it?
Well, and so but those gender roles, as we have seen them get blurred and perverted over the years, have by blurring and perverting the gender roles, we've thrown so many wrenches in everything.
Yeah.
We've thrown the biggest wrench in the healthy family unit and structure. So I would say that's a good rule of thumb is, what is this promoting? What is this glorifying? And
Yes. Because you mentioned immoral behavior, and I actually think immoral behavior is not necessarily like a good litmus test, because then you couldn't read the Bible. The Bible's full of murder, lying, cheating, rape and incest, homosexuality. Like, there's everything. But obviously, it's not saying do these things. And I think the human condition is such that there is ickiness. And interesting media and stories will kind of deal with that in a true way. I think the problem that makes a lot of Christian films like not good, not interesting, is because they're so sanitized, they don't reflect reality anymore.
Oh my gosh.
They become this disposable sort of like drivel with a gospel message at the end. I think people they're doing a better job now of making them more real. But it's like they wanted to make them be so like pure behavior that it's not interesting to watch because it's not real.
It's not life.
Yeah.
It's the ultimate scripted. That's the problem with Christian movies. So, yeah, sorry, Christian movies are bad, by and large. And
now there's some good ones. I think they're getting better.
Most things are glorifying evil. But you can still find good stuff. And what is it glorifying? What is it promoting? Yeah.
Even like heist movies. This is where I have a hard time, because heist movies can be so, it's like, action's all fun or whatever. But it's like, usually they're trying to steal. The culmination is like, can they pull off this theft? And you're like hoping that they do it. And so that doesn't seem right. Just because they're stealing from somebody who's more evil than them. It's like, we shouldn't be rooting for this theft, but that's what it builds you to. And so I would imagine that that's not a good way to be training your heart, to be rooting for someone to steal.
But I would say take heart, because honestly, and you may need to set aside a little bit of time to do this, but there are hundreds of thousands of hours of entertainment out there that are high quality, good films that glorify good things.
Yeah.
And they show good examples of family units. And we should probably start sharing some of those on maybe somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, because I have a list of like
there is a modern cartoon-ish, modern-ish, 2016 or something, that we did watch during Sukkot, that is a French cartoon with no words.
Yes, love that movie.
And it's called Minuscule. So there's one modern animation for your kids.
Beautiful, so fun.
And there's no words, so you don't have to worry about any like kids being brats to their parents.
Ooh.
Dad, I'm not gonna do that.
Door slam.
These sorts of things. We want to cut this stuff out of we don't want our kids to have heroes that are gonna act like terrible,
like jerks to their parents. I don't even want to know,
Home Alone, like Macaulay Culkin.
Oh my gosh! Say goodnight, Kevin. Good night, Kevin. I don't even want to know. I don't want them to know that it's possible to even respond to an adult in that way, because it's so outlandish. That's a hard rule I have. If there are any children being bratty or strange, whiny, I'm like, no. You can't even know that exists.
Both Katie and I have immigrant fathers.
Yeah, homie don't play
hungry. That. And we grew up in. I'm not saying all immigrant fathers are this way, but I think a lot of them, the first gens, they bring, at least in our cases, they brought strict order to the household and respect.
Yeah.
And so that is something that I want, that my kids must have. And so I would like their hero. I need their heroes to also have that. And so what is it promoting? What is it glorifying? Is it promoting and glorifying Macaulay Culkin like snubbing his nose at his parents? Or is it even showing that? I know he learns. I know that he has a change. He has a character arc in Home Alone. Macaulay Culkin, Kevin, he learns to not be a brat. But seeing the picture of him being a brat is also bad. So I don't know. Is
Yeah.
Home Alone okay? I don't know. Maybe it's okay because he has the character arc. These are the things you got to talk about. I mean, you got to come to the conclusions, just like the calendar, just like everything. You got to prayerfully come to these conclusions on your own, I guess.
Yeah.
But Minuscule's a good one.
That's a
John
really fun
Wayne's
one.
usually pretty good. It starts getting a little...
But even
like-
the women sometimes, like,
Yeah.
there's certain times where the women are acting too saucy, and I want to be like, that's not a normative way for a woman to act. Like, she's acting like the bad girl in Proverbs that you want to, like, run away from.
Yes.
And when
Yeah.
you're little, you don't know what's normal or not. Like, maybe that's how ladies are. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
the saloon lady, there's always, like, one lady in the saloon, and she's, like, has a unbelievable outfit, and she's,
The
like, really
outfits
friendly.
that they would wear back then were so
It's like, I am
extravagant.
slumming. I need to, like, get out of my mom jeans and get some ruffles up in here.
Like they have these huge. There's this one.
Plumage.
What did we watch? We watched one set in Alaska recently.
What was that?
And this woman has like this
Wild.
huge flower ensemble over her
Furry,
shoulder
like-
and some kind of veil.
Just going to town. Like, just
a
walked across
hat,
the
a big
street,
hat.
came back and changed to put another thing on, even more spectacular than the first. I'm like, man, we're so casual now.
We should bring this back, guys,
Yeah.
ladies.
Let's just start showing up to Kroger in full regalia. Let's do it.
I don't know if that was a good answer to your question because I do see the value in entertainment. I mean, this is a passionate
You love
subject for
stories.
me.
I mean, you're a writer.
I love writing.
Yeah.
I wrote fiction a lot in the past, actually. So I care about this topic. I understand the value of entertainment. I'm not like, the Mennonite midwife came over and said to Kayte that they watch no fiction and they read no fiction because the Bible says, think on those things which are true. And so she took that to mean zero fiction. But then Kayte pointed out that Yeshua used fiction to get his points across in parables.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes, you can get a point of a story across in a fictional frame
Yeah.
that you couldn't understand or it wouldn't resonate if it just happened the way it did in real life. And so I think that is the
100%.
beauty and goodness that's fiction when it's working on all cylinders. When we can tell a story and get a parable across, any parable, like the Proverbs, Psalms are full of parables.
Yeah.
The Kings and all the other books are full of all these stories and to get a perspective across. But anyway,
I think that's true. When you said the verse, whatever is true, it made me think you can tell a true story. Like, I've heard people tell stories of something that happened to them in a way where your assessment of what happened is like actually not true. And then you can have a fictional story that gets like that proclaims a truth. Do you know what I mean? So whatever is true, I think can be shown in a fictional story. It said Yeshua didn't say anything without saying it in parables. So it's like, obviously this is a medium that is very powerful. And
yeah.
and it sticks with you. It's like, if you like to read nonfiction, that's like my favorite genre. Even in nonfiction, every chapter, you got to go through the story about Billy was like this, and then Henry was like that, and then you have to see them come to the point that they want to make in the chapter. They don't just hit you with the meat, because they know that the story is going to make an imprint in a way that information, that straight fact won't. It goes to a different part of your brain, stories, than facts.
Yeah, facts. Everything we would learn or consume would just be bulleted lists.
And it goes to the reason why stories are powerful is because they skip that rational parts. Like, when you start hearing somebody give you like facts and like knowledge, it goes to the part of your mind that is discriminating, which we're supposed to have. When you start hearing a story, it goes somewhere else that's not discriminating. So your guard is just naturally down. That's why stories are the best medium to influence a thought.
This is why the enemy has used Hollywood and all story forms, formats, from video games to movies to cartoons, any story
Music.
format,
Yeah,
in
sure.
order to introduce perversity and bad things and his ideas into our lives and to plunge society into this downward spiral of hell. And so that is what we need to be on guard against, because it comes in very sneaky ways. Because I think a lot of times the authors, the writers, aren't seeing the macro view that Satan is seeing, where he has this view of, I want to slowly plunge their entertainment industry into hell. They're just saying, I want to tell this really good story about this guy. And yeah, he happened to do these things, these bad things that were against the Bible, but that's not the main meat. It's a death by 1,000 paper cuts over the series of 100 years. That's what's happened to the entertainment industry, the mainstream entertainment industry. Thank goodness. I mean, back to podcasting.
Yeah.
Thank goodness for these forms of entertainment, because we can discuss these things, prepare ourselves to start rolling up our sleeves and looking through the fray of all of the madness that has been created. I mean, there's so much absurdity that's been written and created and filmed, and so much disgusting, bizarre things. But then there are also these gems of that can help inspire you to want to live well, to want to create, to want to be a good person, and follow the Torah. That I think we cannot throw out fiction, so don't throw it out. Just do a good job vetting it. Maybe spend a little more time vetting it, and maybe introduce some of the old school things like board games and whatnot to your family.
Here's what makes me hopeful too, is that we can make stuff.
Yeah.
I think we've always felt like that. I think it's cool to be a producer and not always just a consumer. And I think people are making things, and they're leveling up what they're making. It's we don't just have to be at the end of this fire hose of just garbage from the enemy. I think believers can make stuff and hopefully, do a good job. And that's YouTube. It's you're the show. That's the whole model. It's you're the show, and then you're going to supply us with never-ending content, and we're going to monetize it. So
my favorite quote is from this John Hibben, the president of Princeton, back when Princeton was a Christian, founded institution. And he says, you few self-directed, I can't remember the exact
with
quote.
Gifts above your fellows.
The world expects you to produce and not only to consume.
Yeah.
To add to its store of good and not subtract from it.
Yes.
And he says to fight the image of the beast in man.
Yeah, and the commercialized vice. I remember that phrase.
That's trying to stamp out the image of God in man. It's such a great quote. I'll link to it because I want you all to read it. And I want you all, especially the young people who have a bent towards creating, I want you all to realize, if you are in the position that you can, by some means or other, whether you have to work half the time freelancing for other people, or you have to go and get a job excavating or cutting grass or mowing or chopping wood or whatever you have to do that thing so that you can create, and then go and create and get it done. Add to the world's store of good. Tell good stories. Make good art. It's very important. As you can see from this question, people want story to distract them from the mundanity of normal life. Yes, everyone, even if you see these people who are married for 30 years and you're like, that's so great, you've been married for 30 years, 40 years. Well, each day, it could get mundane if you don't have any sort of I'm not saying that,
You can get you.
No, I'm
just teasing.
I'm saying that
I have no idea what you're talking about.
A schedule is very important.
Yeah.
And having
it gets familiar.
Things in order is very important so you can be productive. But that can also, it needs to be interrupted. And story interrupts it.
Yes. Yes, it allows you to travel to places you haven't been. It allows you to live experiences that you won't ever have. And that's the fun part,
And so, all right, on this same topic, man, this is a really good topic. Plan to take your family places so that they can experience them themselves instead of just seeing them through the fictionalized things.
YouTube
Take
even
them
is like
on vacation. Take them somewhere. Take them, if you can work remotely, then make it happen. Go to El Salvador. Go to Costa Rica. I mean, vet those places too before you go, but go to those places and learn from the people, learn different languages. That's life too, man.
Yeah, sure.
Get that stuff. Don't just watch movies. Go out and do things.
The thing about YouTube and stuff, and that's really fun because my mom likes to watch people, their lives in other countries. Like, oh, I watched this couple in Japan. And it's like a slice of life. You can just put yourself right into their day. But you could get to a point where you are living through that, where you can feel like you've had experiences that you haven't because you watched someone else live. And that's not good. I think it's nice to be able to just drop in, like see what's life like on the other side of the world, just so that you're not so self-centric that you think my little world in my tiny house is all there is. But at the same time, engage with the actual world because the actual world is interesting and fun
and that's how your children
beautiful.
will learn. I mean,
Yeah.
they're going to learn from the people in those other countries.
Yeah.
They're going to learn more that way than they would watching YouTube. It's all going to
or
go.
even in your own
they're gonna lose
town,
it
you
all.
know?
Yeah.
This is just silly. But if you're ever bored, just go online and look up tourist recommendations for your own town. This episode of the Life Podcast is brought to you by The Way documentary, The Truth, Reformation 2.0 Apologetics book, and Truth Tracks. The Way documentary tells the story of our movement. This is the story of people who were trading Easter ham for Passover lamb and Sunday church for Saturday Sabbath, all in an effort to live like their Savior. It dives into their stories through their own voices and into the history and theology that show how the church got to where it is today. The Truth, Reformation 2.0 is the only book of its kind, an all-encompassing theological treatise that answers every question a mainstream Christian might have about why you want to keep Torah. And finally, Truth Tracks are small comics, beautifully illustrated, that use stories and scripture to remind Christians that once we are saved by grace through faith, we are called to live and do the instructions of Yah, his Torah. If you want to learn more about any of these products, go to thewaydoc.com. That's theway, D-O-C, like documentary.com.
All right, next, baby.
All right. Do you ever get discouraged, and how do you help yourself when you do? This, I believe, is from Helen Arends. Arends? The one who was on about.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
with her
she's
husband
great.
Al. Yeah.
She is
They're
the
cool.
one who had the bread baking business, and,
Yes.
and they have the pizza making company.
Yes,
Yes,
those
okay,
pizzas.
yes, Helen, I do get discouraged sometimes, and usually what I do is I say to Katie, everything that I'm doing is useless and horrific and stupid and a waste of time. What am I doing? This is ridiculous. Why am I not a trucker right now? And then she will say, inevitably, what will you say? Yes, you should just be a trucker. Go do it.
No, I will not.
What do you say?
I'll say this is of eternal import, what you're doing. You won't even ever know. People who are spurred on to love God more, obey him more, apply themselves to their lives because of the stories that you're sharing and the truth that you share. And I also think it's really, okay, this is a sideways way of answering, but it's related. My name is Kayte. Kayte means pure. My favorite beatitude is blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. I've always seen sin as and lies as a static in between us and God. The more sin and lies that are here as I'm looking through to my Heavenly Father, the more I'll misunderstand him and the less I'll be like him. Hence, any work that removes lies from the ether is like a punch in the face of the enemy, and it actually helps people see God like he is and to be like him. So when I see you write a book that's like trying to remove the lies from the theology that we've all inherited, or when you talk to in a podcast to someone who has something worthwhile to share that can put forth truth, that is like spiritual warfare. And it can be fun along the way, and it can be edifying. And when there is all this drivel and all this evil stuff, that's like an option for our people, for people to watch. and you're putting out another option that is a better option, I think that's incredibly important. I also think you'll never even know the impact. And most of us will never know what Yah's doing through our life because you just don't see all the layers and all the ripples out that he sees. And so I basically say, grab hold of yourself. It's important. Don't be silly. Of course it matters.
So basically, you need a Kayte, Helen. You need a Kayte. Make sure your husband is doing that for you. It's helpful to have.
You're too humble. I feel like you won't even allow yourself sometimes to see the upside of your work because you're like, oh, you're so, you're a humble person naturally.
She's very nice.
See, look, he won't even admit it. But
and nothing against truckers out there. I mean, I think the reason I brought up trucking is because it's like, I'm going to start trucking. I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to be a hot shotter, baby. And so, but I do think that we're supposed to be doing the work we're doing. Anyway, that's beside the point.
Helen and Al are like entrepreneurial people. They're very like DIY type people. And it's interesting, like when you are setting your own goals, benchmarks, when you're deciding how much you'll work and when and making all these decisions and you're driving it, you do have to like stay on top of that discipline to continue and that diligence to continue doing the work. Especially if you're doing something where you're working on the front end to be paid on the back end, or when you're, seeding into a business, trying to build so you can get somewhere, whatever. You need a little bit of, there are times that get hard with that. Stay motivated.
How do you not get discouraged?
I definitely tilt towards like self-improvement, like optimizing, getting better. And when you do that, sometimes you can just feel like, I'm just always going to be working on something. I had the thought the other day, I don't want to be 100 and be like, why was I so hard on myself in my 30s? Like I was doing a good job. I was taking care of my responsibilities, I should say. Sometimes you can get so into the like achievement mindset, whether you're like a mama or whatever in an office somewhere, that you're not even seeing the good. I told some of our girls at Shabbat that I wanted to, at the end of the day, I've just been doing it in my mind. I haven't been writing it down, but like write a couple things that went well. What went well in our marriage today? What went well with the kids today? What went well, just managing our home or with our Shabbat homies or whatever, to train your mind to look at that stuff. I think that helps with discouragement. Your brain is so good at picking out everything that goes wrong. When things run smoothly, you don't even notice because they're running smoothly. And another thing I think helps is on our anniversaries, we always make goals for the next year. And going back to look at those and seeing like, wow, actually steps have been taken towards some of these things that we were just like dreaming up what would be awesome last year. And now we're seeing some of that stuff happen, or maybe God changes what the goal should be or whatever. Going back to look at what you were praying about before, what you were struggling with before, I think that is a big encouragement too.
I would say don't be discouraged. We live right now, especially in this moment in Western history, I think, where a lot of things are possible currently. And so I think that one of the faults of this movement is forgetting that and focusing instead on the impending doom. And I think that is wrong. And the reason it's wrong is because not only does it distract us, it also discourages us from taking the mantle that we have been handed. If we're alive right now and capable of anything, then we are holding the mantle of our generation of people who understand that the Torah is relevant and that Yeshua is our Savior. And we must do something with that mantle. We must push the ball forward. And the Great Commission is that we're supposed to go forth and make disciples, and we're supposed to teach them everything that Yeshua commanded them. Then, in the Gospels and in his lifestyle, which is the Torah. So we got to go and teach those things. We must push this thing forward. Don't be discouraged. And it's not just that. Also, like, we have to take our place and step into our roles of being leaders in this country economically and in every other way. So I say, when you start feeling discouraged, realize the opportunities are great and the stakes are high. The stakes are life and death. I mean, people are killing themselves out there for lack of understanding the truth and for lack of purpose. Both of those things we have been given with the Torah. So we need to be strong, not only for ourselves and our families, but for those people that we can hopefully disciple and help, that we can help them realize their purpose in life, their purpose in the afterlife, their purpose for millennia to come, like their eternal purpose. And so because we know that, Satan is trying to do everything he can to silence us and limit our reach. But what you must do, Helen, and what we must do is we must take our place and our role in the economy, in society, and in ministry, and we have to push the ball forward, and we just have to crowd the hours with the best that is in us.
Yeah, that's the end of that quote.
Yeah, that's the end of the John Hibben quote.
So good.
So I say, drink some coffee. Take a shot of espresso. To heck with the health detriments, if there are any. Get wired, get jacked, and go and make those pizzas, baby.
Yeah, make some. I want some of that brick oven pizza up in here. That's so funny you said espresso, because I thought of a really practical thing too. If I'm just like too in my head in a swirl, just go outside. Go outside. It's like instant perspective. It's like, oh, okay, the sky's still up there skying. The birds are still birding. Get over yourself, Katie. This is like it just is like, okay, there's a lot more going on than what's going on in your little tiny house, and you'll be fine.
When we look back at World War II and we see Winston Churchill, and we think about, the immense responsibility that man and many other people during that segment in history had, we are seeing it 2020 because we're seeing it from now. But back then, it was just another Tuesday that Winston was waking up and drinking his daily bottle of champagne. I mean, that's what he had to do to get motivated. Don't do that. But what I'm trying to say is...
What are you saying exactly? It's funny, whatever it is. I like it.
I'm saying that on that Tuesday, back in 1939 or 1941 or 1942 or whatever it was, Winston Churchill probably didn't realize that he was going to have to make decisions that changed the course of history. But each day that we probably don't think the same thing. We think, oh, we're just out in the middle of a field in Oklahoma or Ohio or wherever. But the decisions that you make are shaping your children, they're shaping the people around you, and they're shaping the world. And so I'm saying that the stakes are high, whether we realize it or not. And so discouragement is not an option. Discouragement cannot be there. We have to kill it. It's from the enemy. Pray about it. Pray and seek the Father's face so that he will give you joy and passion and energy to push forward, because the missions that we have are very important, and Satan is trying to distract us in every single possible way. The most prevalent being distraction and being this malaise. So we have to cut the throat of malaise, and we have to cut the throat of distraction by not allowing it. And the only way to not allow it is to quit focusing on it. So that is my there you go.
That's good.
Well, what's the next question?
Wait.
Okay.
There's more. Oh, there's so much. That's so rich, bub. You can't just move on. Okay, let me think. That just made me think, okay, why do you get discouraged? I think it's often because you're working towards something and seeing no fruit, right? You're like, I'm just in the grind, but I'm not getting anywhere. That's why I get discouraged. I think that one practice perhaps that could work too is like, when I do my weekly meetings on Sundays, one of the questions I'm supposed to ask myself is, what have I been avoiding, and like do it right now? And sometimes if you can just like do a little step that perhaps you've been like procrastinating or avoiding, or that could like inch you towards something that feels like progress. Maybe you even just ask yourself, what would feel like progress right now, even if it's like an inch, and then do that. That momentum can sometimes help. Oh Man, you said so many other good things. I don't remember what they were. Okay, never mind. Helen had like a million. Can I ask you another one of hers?
Sure.
Are you afraid of being misunderstood?
No. No, how could I be
asked you that 'cause
misunderstood when I...
You don't care at all about that.
I think you run less of a risk of being misunderstood the more totally honest you are. So I try my best to just speak my mind and not self-censor. And so I think that allows me to feel as if I'm not being misunderstood. Although who knows, if someone is unable to understand the words that I'm saying, then I'm happy to clarify.
You have a personality where it's like, if they don't get it, that's on them. And I feel so opposite. I'm like, ooh, should I reword it? Like, that's opposite.
You know what?
You're like, I know what
it
I
actually is a skill to... It's a very basic and important and sometimes difficult skill that all of our kids need to learn is the skill of communicating verbally in the written word, and now more and more visually, like with visual media. And so I highly, highly, highly recommend investing in anything that can help your children learn to communicate in that way. And so that is basically what I studied studying journalism. It's in the school of communication. And because that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to understand the information and find out the information. And you can only do that by asking questions and searching and researching. And so then you're packaging that in your brain and you're digesting it, understanding it, and spitting it back out. So since I've had a lot of practice doing that, I am less worried about being misunderstood, although I'm sure I don't always do it perfectly.
Yes, you do. Charlotte Mason is an education pioneer or whatever. She has her theory and people use it. Sorry, anyway, there's a thing that she does in her schooling that I love, and it's called narration. So instead of with your kids as they're learning, you're like true or false. Like you listen to something and then you give them a true or false. You give them the fill in the blank. You have them do a narration, which is kind of like what the boys will do for Bible time, where they just stand up and say, this is what I recall from what I heard. And like the act of the narration allows them to take in information, make meaning of it, and articulate that meaning. And when you do your schooling where everything is like the whole sentence is written for you except for the one word you're supposed to remember, or if it's a true and false, or if it's a multiple choice, you're skipping that process of taking in information, making meaning, and articulating. And I really like that she advocates for that. So you were just talking about expressing yourself.
If our group of Torah people are largely homeschooling their children, and the one Achilles heel of homeschooled children is communicating in society. And that is so key and important to their success, not only their personal success, but their usefulness in society. And we need them to be powerful and useful. Yeah. And a lot of that is learning to communicate and write. And maybe one really good thing that we could recommend is Jordan Peterson's writing
self-authoring
class called self-authoring, where you are thinking through, your past self, current self, and future self. But in the thinking, you're doing these exercises of writing. That may be helpful for older students to do, actually. Yeah. I would say. Like when they're getting close to aging out of high school, 15, 16, whatever, 17, I think that they should take the self-authoring class. But before that, they really need to know how to write very well. And their vocabulary needs to be very good. And that can only happen if they read the best books. So I think that all of our homeschooled brethren out there, their parents should really focus on those things: vocabulary, communication, writing, reading. I'm sure you already are all doing that. Many homeschoolers are brilliant out there, so I'm not too worried about it. But make sure that your kids are getting the practice in eye-to-eye communicating, interpersonal communicating.
They need
a lot of that. They need a lot of that. It just has to be thousands of hours. So you have to put them in front of strangers for thousands of hours. I'm
Oh,
serious.
sorry. It just sounded funny how you phrased it. I see what you're saying.
Do not shelter them so much that they are going to never leave your basement. This is insane. Because if they're not leaving the basement, then they are not out there changing the world. Then other people are changing the world. I want your kids we all believe the same way. So I thus want your kids to be doing the most cool things in the world and having the most influence and power in the world.
Sure.
And the only way they're going to do that is if they can properly communicate. So I really, really encourage you guys as parents to do whatever it takes. Maybe they need to take master classes in this masterclass.com. Maybe they need to just do Toastmasters where they can do public speaking. I mean, do it all. They must be able to do public speaking. They must be able to learn just proper
It
grooming.
can start so basic. We just have our little car meetings. We're going to the library. I'm just like, guys, listen, we're going in the library. Here are the rules of the library. Also, you might meet people, and they might say, hey, how are you doing? What's your name? When they do, look them in the eye. Speak up nice and loud. Old people can't always hear, and say clearly what your name is. And then you can ask them a question, too. You can ask them, how was your day? And we like role play. I think if kids even just know that it's not normal to not look up when someone speaks to you, then they have a leg up on a lot of kids who are just socially, it's like not normal.
And the kids must learn this. And so if they're really young, you got to teach them that. Parent, you know this. I'm a young parent, quote unquote. We only have 3 kids, but I see from my, some of my fellow parents,
kids
young
are responsive
parents,
to that
they need to. We need to shape them properly from the beginning to speak to adults, look in their eyes, be responsive, be respectful, or else they must be disciplined. So that's all I'll say about that.
Yeah, kids are a joy. They should be, I guess. They should be. We just read the proverb. It's like, if your kids aren't disciplined, they're not going to be rest to you. They're going to be like weariness to your bones. I'm like, don't want that.
Folly resounds in the heart of a child, and the rod drives it from him.
That's what it says. Okay.
Something like that.
I have to answer this question, too, about being misunderstood. We got way off, but only because I have a very different answer. I used to think about this tremendously. I think I said in the last Ask Us Anything that I took this Jordan Peterson personality assessment, and he's like, you're 99% like politeness or whatever, agreeableness or whatever the thing is. I actually wanted to share this because I had a little like learning lesson. I feel like God taught me something with the podcast. Because in the beginning, I was like looking at a lot of the comments, reading all the comments, and certain episodes, maybe a couple that got bigger, had more people on there in the comments who didn't agree with Torah-Observant and who were just saying but what about this and this and that, and you guys are misinformed, and this is a poison, this is toxic, this is crazy, you haven't read the Bible, haven't read Galatians. And it was all that stuff. And I was like, when I read stuff like that, it was making me, I was like, And then I was praying about it. I was like, why are these comments making me so mad when I know that they're wrong? Why are they making me upset? And I feel like God said, because you're reading the comment through the lens of how it reflects on your glory, not on my glory. Meaning, I would hear someone, say, or I would read someone say, you obviously haven't read Galatians. And I would think, yes, I have. My husband wrote a book about, and it made me, like, she thinks I don't know the Bible. She thinks less of me. She doesn't respect me. She doesn't esteem me. That's why I was getting mad. Because I was like, what does what this person says mean about how they view me? Do they esteem me? They don't. That's upsetting. And it was like in the heart when I realized that. And God said, it doesn't matter if your glory is elevated or diminished by what someone writes. Like, that's just being real. Who cares? It's not even about you. You're not that important. It's about me getting glory and worship. And I was like, oh, that was and it clicked something in my brain that helped my own emotional regulation. It's like, you're caring about the wrong thing. But it wasn't even, I hadn't articulated it to myself. It was like a subconscious level thing. It was happening so quick, But that's why I was getting upset.
Wow. So if your focus is just on what people are learning about Yah, then then and not on yourself, then it helps you feel more comfortable about being understood or misunderstood.
It's like, what does she think about him? But my first thought was, what is she thinking about me? It's not about me. It doesn't matter. I don't even know this person. I'll never know this person.
That's cool, baby.
Yeah, it was like crazy. It's the wrong lens. Anyway, that's that. Let's see. Totally different question. Ooh, here's somebody following from Geneva, Switzerland. Patricia. Sorry, I said Patricia. They have a small fellowship in Switzerland.
Cool. Our cousin lives in Switzerland. Lausanne.
Yeah.
Lausanne?
That's really
Lausanne.
cool. She says,
I've spent many really good summers in Lausanne. Lausanne. I think it's Lausanne. Sorry if I'm saying it wrong. But man, there's a smell on Lake Geneva that it's just like smells like summer to me. And it's beautiful, and there's no other smell anywhere in the world that I've found is that same. Maybe anywhere where there's a big, beautiful, clean lake, that giant body of water, you'll probably get the same summer smell. But I remember going down and getting the Magnum ice cream, the hazelnut. Oh my gosh. Yeah, there's so many great things about Switzerland and Europe. So I'm glad that there's someone in Switzerland who's writing.
Hello.
Hey, hola.
I was only there for a minute, but I remember I had the best hot chocolate of my life. It was like liquid
Oh yeah, oh my gosh.
cake. I don't know. It was so, I was like, this is so rich. This is borderline illegal.
I mean, bonjour.
Yeah.
Oh wait, she's in Geneva. So he's in the French speaking part.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Oh, well, this is what the question is. Do you have plans to translate any of your work? We would be interested in French.
Oh yeah, she's in the French speaking part too.
The Way it has French subtitles, right?
Yeah, The Way has French subtitles. I think The Christmas Question does. I don't know, maybe
It
not.
at least has Spanish. Christmas Question at least has Spanish, but I'm not sure.
Man, Peppy helped proof
The French.
Our Swiss cousin helped proof the French in the Way, I think.
The Way is in a lot of languages, I think.
But the truth is not in any other language than English. So as of now, I mean, I feel like in German, some guys in Germany were translating the truth into German. So I need to follow up with them. And then, hey, you want to translate the truth into French if you think it's worth it? Do it. Peppy can proofread. No, he won't. He won't spend that time. He doesn't believe this stuff. He wouldn't spend the time. I don't blame anyone who wouldn't spend the time. It's such a job, man.
The way that we've had these translations pretty much has been people saying, I have family that only speaks X language. Do you mind if I
They volunteer.
translate? And then we give them like English subtitles and they're frame by frame doing these translations, which has been amazing. We're thankful for all those people.
Yeah. Thank you, translators.
Yeah, really cool.
So basically, if you want to do it, yes, do it. But
We just
other
gave
than
you
that-
more work. Okay. James says, what is the longest period of time you two have ever been in an argument?
I feel like our arguments don't last forever because we just have them.
Like an afternoon.
We have the argument. If you don't
We don't
have
have
the
long arguments. We don't have long
if you
arguments.
don't have the argument, then the argument will the undercurrent of angst will continue. The black cloud will continue for years. But we always have the
Terrifying.
argument, and so we don't have the black cloud of the argument or the impending argument. I feel like I usually will just say it. And maybe Katie has learned to do that more often than she used to. Is that right?
I mean, I just feel like we don't have a ton of things. I think it's more like I get like a weird attitude or something like that. To me, remedy for like the funny attitude that I might have is just like hanging out. Like after dinner or something, we just like talk for a long time and I'm like, you're so great. I love you. You're so fun. This is great. Just,
So if
like,
the cloud
reconnecting.
starts to build, I
Yeah.
guess something that gets rid of it is if we can have time to have a date.
Mhm.
Because for her, that solves it. And for me,
Or
if
even
I have a
just
problem,
talking,
I just
yeah.
tell her.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So have we had long, like, standing arguments?
Never.
Another Jordan Peterson references in his book, he talks about if things stay not discussed and hidden, like hidden sin in your life or relationship, it grows from this little lizard basically into a dragon, and the dragon's so big that it breaks out of the house, basically meaning that it breaks the house apart, the household apart, meaning the family apart. So if you don't address the things, if you don't have the things sorted out, then the house gets broken apart.
Yeah.
And I think part of that, which I never really thought about though, is that I kind of made you my accountability partner early in our marriage, where I would
Same.
tell you if I had any problems
Struggle or
or
something.
sin or whatever, and then you would know, and that level of honesty in every single aspect of life with each other, I think has helped us in a bunch of ways.
Yeah. Shoot, this is so convicting. Now I have to tell you something.
Oh gosh.
One time, after I dropped the kids off at Nan's, I went to Wendy's. And I got a Frosty, bub. And I never told you.
You don't have to tell me that.
Well, you convicted me. So there you have it. I did that once.
Katie loves junk food.
I just felt like I deserve this Frosty. Do you guys feel like this? Okay,
She ate it in secret.
I asked Luke, do you ever feel like some people have different things that they want at the end of a long day? Like, do you feel like I deserve this brownie? He's like, I never feel like I deserve a food. It's not about deserve. It's about do I want it or not. Do you guys feel like you deserve food or no?
It's funny.
What do you feel like you deserve?
I
You
just
don't
don't
think
think
like
of
that.
it
It's
in
not
that frame of
transactional.
I deserve this or not. I mean, I feel like
You're making me seem so twisted.
no, but if you have the money, I guess you deserve it. If you want a diamond ring and you have the money, you deserve the diamond ring.
That's
Evidently.
so funny. You're like, if I have access to it, it means I worked to get it. So then,
But it doesn't
Hence-
mean you should have it either.
no, of course,
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Because you could have like a Frosty every single day.
sure.
And you could say I have the money for this Frosty, and so I'm gonna have it. But
I think like I've been thinking about this is not to do with anything ever at all that we're talking about, but figuring out how to meet your needs in a way that is edifying and life-giving is really important. Like you might need time that's quiet. And I like to stay up really late, but I'm realizing that can have like detrimental effects. Like I don't stay up late like I used to, but you know what I mean? It's nice to, like, I could get that quiet time in the morning, but I feel like it's not the same as the nighttime quiet time. But then the nighttime quiet time has like a drawback. I've just been thinking about that.
yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I back to deserving things, because I'm still thinking about that.
About the Frosty?
No, about deserving things.
Okay.
Like the way you're framing things in your head.
Mm-hmm.
Like I like cognac, so at night, right now I'm not drinking, but normally I would, if I want, when I come home
Sure.
and it's been a long day or it's cold, this is the perfect time to have a cognac, and you relax, and you just sit by the fire or whatever. You talk with your wife. You have cognac. You're relaxing. I don't think about like I deserve this cognac. I think I want a glass of cognac.
Now I feel evil.
No, I'm not. I'm just thinking about how people think about deserving things.
True.
And not
You have a
deserving
different
things.
story in your head about stuff. It's not all the same.
I guess I just think I want the glass of cognac and it's evening. But in the morning, I wouldn't say I want a glass of cognac, because I know that it's bad. It's detrimental. It would be evil for me to drink a glass of cognac in the morning.
Out of place.
Or a shot of cognac or whatever you want to say. But it would be great for me to drink coffee in the morning because it motivates and it gives you energy to do. Anyway, something in the morning could be great and in the evening could be horrible. Like if I have a shot of espresso in the evening rather than a shot of cognac, then it's totally different. It'll keep me up all night. It'll challenge my next day's work.
Timing. It's like we just read in Ecclesiastes. There's a time for everything.
Yeah.
Pluck up, plant, rend, sow.
Sorry. What is the next question?
We've got way off the rails there. Okay, let's see.
It's just, what does the deserve come from, I wonder? What does this idea of I deserve this come from? I always try
Honestly,
and purge
I
that
think
thought
it's a
from my
twisted.
mind.
I think it's a twisted line of thinking. Frankly, I try not to think that way because I think it's like feeling like you're doing unnoticed work or something like that, instead of just being like, "This is what I'm doing." There's that whole thread where Yeshua's like, "Your heavenly Father who sees what's done in secret will reward you," and that's like the mindset that everyone needs to have as a servant. Everyone does thankless things, you know. In every job, dads, moms. It's not like a mom exclusive thing. I feel like in our culture, it's like, oh, moms, everything's so thankful. I'm like, you're on the roof scraping off our solar panels. I'm not going to do that. It's dangerous. And, you know, a billion things. In the middle of the night, you're checking on the whatever, you know, there's some weird noise outside. Anyway, all I'm saying is everyone does thankless things. And I must have been in a bad way keeping a record in my head of that stuff as opposed to just reveling and enjoying my work.
So you felt like
I don't know. I'm trying to work
I'm
it
just
out.
thinking, you felt
Yeah.
like you had done so many of these things that were thankless or were not getting a reward, a proper reward that you were like, I deserve this Frosty.
It's like I'm self-directed. I'm going to reward myself. But maybe it's not that. It could be that. It could also just be
Rewarding
like
yourself would be good.
when your life is so enmeshed with your children, and like even the things I do for fun are like about homemaking. Like I want to like make our little natural apothecary. Like, do we have the right natural remedy for the cough and the this and the that? You know, even the stuff I like to do for fun has to do with that. It's a part of my mind is like, there's a place that's like, we were talking about hobbies. Is there anything I ever do that's just because it's fun? Pickleball, you know, something like that. And there are things that I would enjoy, and a lot of them are food. So, it's my hobby. Not to have the
And
Frosty.
you're rewarding yourself. You're
but doing
rewarding yourself
something-
for the good work you've done, basically.
Yeah, just having something. Not because you're supposed to, and not because it's part of a task or part of the job. It's just like, I'm just having this to enjoy it. I think that's what it is.
I think that's great.
Maybe
I'm
not
glad
the
you
reward
did it,
thing. I
bub.
think it's just like, I'm doing something useless. Like, I'm trying to dust off my Italian. I don't have anyone to speak Italian with, but I took it in college or whatever. It's fun. It's totally useless, and that's why it's fun to learn it again. Any Italians out there?
That's great, baby. I'm
that what
glad
it
you
is?
had the Frosty.
Look, I made it. I made it so it didn't make me look so bad.
How
I
could
also
it
love
make you
marketing.
look bad? Marketing.
Uh-oh. Better not be stoking my own glory.
Trying to
Okay.
get sponsored by Wendy's. Sponsored
Oh,
by
no.
Wendy's. I bet
Stop.
most of the 90% of our audience won't go to Wendy's.
No, if we got sponsored by a fast food chain, everyone would stop watching. It's against our religion to eat seed oils. Okay. Allison asks, this is interesting because I know who this lady is she's talking about. Could you please be a guest on some mainstream Christian podcasts like Allie Beth Stuckey and respond to them accusing Hebrew Roots movement of being a cult? Do you know who Allie Beth Stuckey is? She's like a conservative lady, mom, Christian. She talks about about faith, little pop culture, little politics, like theology kind of stuff. She's
And so
a
she
show.
accuses the Hebrew Roots movement of being a cult?
First, I'll say she had a book I really liked called like "You're Not Enough." It was against the sort of everything you need is within you kind of culture, and it was a great. I liked it. It was a important book, so I enjoyed that. She did have an episode that I didn't watch about the dangers of the Hebrew Roots movement. It might have been like Solberg or something. I'm not sure who was on it talking about it, but the interesting thing about those things, and I haven't watched a ton of them, is that I agree with a lot of their critiques about what is poisonous about the Torah world. Like, a lot of the stuff that they say is off, I'm like, yeah, I think that's off too. And then there are cases in which they either...
Meaning heretical beliefs that just are not to do with Torah.
Right, exactly. Errant things that I think are not scriptural, people trying to earn salvation, you know, all the basic problems that aren't good, I would agree with. And then I think there's stuff that they're not seeing. I think there's stuff they're not understanding properly about scripture and like the blessings of actually obeying God. There's so much to be said for why it's good to listen to your Heavenly Father.
Well,
So
I'd say
it's
we'd
funny.
happily be on any podcast, pretty much. I don't spend much time like going and trying to court podcasts and hook up interviews, I'm usually looking for people to interview. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe we should do it.
Especially in defense of the faith, I think there's so much you can do. Like, people have their own lines. Some people will go after people who are attacking Hebrew roots and respond and say, like, no, it's this way, and I'm going to make a defense for us. And I think what the podcast has been so far has been something for our people. I remember thinking it would be really nice to just have a space where the things that you think are true are assumed to be true, and that not every communication is proving it, because that's kind of tiring. I think it's nice to have a place where everyone is on the same page already, and we're just starting from like baseline, yes, Torah is good, baseline, yes, Yeshua is our salvation.
Yeah.
Then you build on that conversation. It's restful. It's like-minded.
She should interview David Wilbur. He's the guy for this.
Go on there, David Wilbur.
David, go teach her why she's wrong. I mean, he's good at that. So
Yeah, he has so many great interactions with people.
as much as I'm into communication and everything, I'm probably not the best debater on earth. I mean, I do have my perspectives, and I will give them. So I'm happy to talk about them with anyone.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess, yeah, I what Katie's saying is the life is kind of a lifestyle podcast in which we focus on the cool things that people in this movement are doing, and less on apologetics for these beliefs, because we all, and most of the people watching, already agree.
Mm-hmm.
What's next?
Okay.
But heck, I'd be on the podcast, it'd be a blast. I talk
like
about
her.
all of our stuff. Katie loves her
I would
stuff.
enjoy meeting her. I think I feel like there's a lot of overlap and good thoughts I have. I think she has about culture and stuff like that. Oh, this is interesting. There was a question similar to this in the last Ask Us Anything about our interracialness. Megan asks, I stalked Megan. Megan, I went on your Facebook and your family's beautiful. How do you prepare your children for racism, or do you just plan to deal with any issues as they arrive? I'm genuinely asking because my husband and I are different skin colors. There's a little black heart and a little white heart.
Well, what do you think? Do you want to?
I would say I don't prepare them for racism. I would say I prepare them. What we've communicated so far with our kids is like, man looks at the outward appearance and God looks at the heart. Deal with people as they come. Yes, have discernment and stuff like that, and have your eyes open or whatever. Yes, there will be people who maybe just hate you because you're black. However, in most of our interactions day to day, in my experience, most people are semi-normal and semi-kind, unless they're having a really off day or they're just like Dr. Evil or something like that. I think it's very important what you expect. Did I tell this thing about this? Okay. I don't remember if I talked about this in the last podcast, so I'll just mention it again. There was this study done where these women went in for a job interview, and they were told that they were part of an experiment that had to do with facial deformities and the prejudices that people face. So they had a makeup artist give them a scar, like a fake scar on their face. And then they showed them the scar, what they look like with it. Then at the last minute, the makeup artist said, let me just touch that up. And they actually removed the entire scar. The women went into the interview thinking that they had a scar, and they came out saying, essentially like, the interviewer was giving me dirty looks. They were staring at the scar the whole time. I felt like they were dismissive. They noted all of these behaviors that had to do with the scar that wasn't there. That's not to say that racism doesn't exist. Obviously, I know it exists. However, what you're looking for, you'll find way more of. And that's how I kind of look at it. I personally enjoy people of all races, obviously. And my experience, I think in our culture, it's so easy to live like a narrative on TV more so than your own daily experience. I remember, like, my brother told me one time, you know, I'll be walking around, I have a great day, I come home, I see on the news somebody else got shot. And I'm like, but the first part of what you said was that you had a great day and that you had interactions with all your people of all different races. If we lived in our own experience more than in the stories that are told us so often, we would have a much more enjoyable situation. Oh man, there's so much to say there. The expectations are important. I don't think you should shelter your kids. Like, they should know that some people are going to be like that, but I don't think they should be walking into life expecting to be discriminated against. I just think that's the most disempowering thing you could do for like a little black kid, for example. And I just also, to me, I feel like my defining trait is that I'm a child of God. I love that I'm half Ghanaian, half black, you know, but the thing that I am most proud of is like whose family I am in. You know, I'm grafted into his family, and like that's what I feel like I lead with. And like the things I'm interested in, stuff like that. And I know it's different for different people. Some people, it's like the first thing I love about myself is that I'm black, and like everything is about the fact that I'm black. That's fine. That's fine too. I don't know. What do you think?
Nothing. I think that that's great. I agree with you. I definitely agree that what you look at, what you focus on is usually what you will go toward or see more of. And so if you do expect to be treated in a discriminatory way, I think you'll see more of it than not. But I mean, living in a society where most people are all white around here in Ohio, it's not even something that enters my mind because it's not my lived experience.
But I mean, you lived in New York forever.
That's true.
We both lived in New York where there was everything.
It was my lived experience in Japan, actually, because in Japan, it's like totally monoculture where everyone is Japanese. Everyone.
But they're not like looking down on white people. It's like a little...
No, but they do treat you totally differently.
Yeah.
But in a good way. They all want to like, you know, touch your hair and stuff, and it's true. I mean, it's like you are a anomaly.
Yeah.
And so that's the only time I ever was in a situation where I was an anomaly, like just physically and visually. I'm taller than everybody. My hair's not dark. I'm not Japanese. And so I would stand out like a sore thumb. And yeah,
it's so weird to me because I feel like I'm not an anomaly. Even though there's like not that many black people in this town. I don't know what that is. I feel like I'm just looking at people. It's like, when we first moved here, I found an Instant Pot on Facebook Marketplace and it was a great price. I was like, let me go get this Instant Pot. So I pull up to this lady's house to get the Instant Pot and the garage door is open and there's a massive Confederate flag in her garage, like floor to ceiling. And I'm like, oh shoot, I was praying or whatever. And I had our son with me. And I went to the door and I rang the doorbell and the lady was like, oh, hi. She was the sweetest lady. She like invited me in. She had my son there. She pulled out toys for him, like was showing us pictures of her grandkids, got the Instant Pot, mint condition, still use it for Shabbat. But it was just so interesting because it's like, you know, you could, I'm not trying to like walk into silly situations or anything like that, but like you could go into that and be like so fearful and tight and you're just like, what's going to happen? It was like the sweetest lady. I don't know why she had a Confederate flag. That's like, that's her business or whatever, but.
Yeah, I guess you could see the Confederate flag and be like, you could have just left.
Right, I don't want a Confederate Instant Pot
or
whatever. Yeah. I don't know.
But
the reality is she was very kind to me. She like loved Max. She just thought he was so sweet and was kind to him and nice. And it wasn't what you might have thought, you know? And I just think it's really nice everyone enjoys getting the benefit of the doubt. And so I think that's just nice when that happens. The other thing I'll say is that a lot of the like conversation about race lately has been like, oh, like microaggressions. Like they're so tiny. It's like you're looking for all these little offenses when I feel like as a believer, you're supposed to be unoffendable. You're supposed to be long-suffering. It's like people were insulting Jesus left and right. They accused him of being illegitimate. I'm sure his whole life they were ragging on him. They're trying to kill him. He wasn't answering back every retort. And so I'm like, are we following in that example? Or are we trying to like make everyone grovel and apologize to us, you know, constantly and forevermore with no forgiveness and no change? It's like, that's not good either. But also no history. Know what's happened, you know, that's important. That's really important.
I think if you move through, I mean, you know, take this for whatever it's worth. I feel like if you move through life with kindness and confidence, that's the best you can do. That's the best you can do. Some people are going to treat you poorly because of your skin. Some people will treat you poorly because you wear zeet-zeets. Some people will treat you poorly because you don't eat pork. You know, there's many, because you're homeschooled,
Yeah.
there's many different things. Anything that sets you apart could be something that a child in this world could just pick out and make fun of you about.
Sure.
But all you should do is see yourself the way that Yah sees you, as a child of Yah. Like she said, a child of God. Like, that's who you are. Go out there and use your gifts and do not be deterred by any of that. That's what I say. Because that is only going to not just distract you, but implant a spirit of fear in your heart.
Yeah.
And we are not
Discouragement.
given a spirit of fear, but power, love, and a sound mind. And so I say just do your best to go and act as if everyone should treat you like anyone else, and expect that. And I try to teach Max and Sam and soon Lily those things. Just be respectful with everyone and expect to be respected from everyone. And that should be life.
And when you're not, it's like
you can
brush the what do you call it? Brush the dirt off your
brush the dirt off your
I have that
dust
song.
off your sandals. Yeah,
Where's that
that's
song?
yeah, it's like she said.
It's like, what do you do when it happens? Okay, yes, it happened.
So the
Are you just
idea
gonna be
then
salty
is
like the
act
whole
in
rest of your
love.
life? Yeah.
Like she said, don't give in to being like adopting that microaggression, whatever, or
Like chip on your
actual
shoulder
aggression,
forever.
actual fight. I mean,
Yeah.
if you get in a fight, you get in a fight. All right, you got to move on.
I mean, the Bible has tons to say about how you handle enemies and stuff.
You got to move on with forgiveness and
Yeah.
love, and you have to approach with love and joy and peace.
Yeah.
That's what I say. Go for the attributes that are described in the Word, and you know that's the best case we can go for.
There are a lot of ways. I'll just say one last thing with the kids. There are a lot of ways of assessing the world, like slicing and dicing. There's two kinds of people in this world: people who freak out when the tea kettle goes off, and people who don't mind the whistle. Anyway,
People who love Neil Diamond, people who can't stand
in
him.
our culture right now, there's a lot of like, drawing those lines like you're this and you're that, like other, black, white, rich, poor, male, female, all these lines or whatever. I think that the scriptural one to have is like city of God, city of evil. It's like the children of the Heavenly Father and the children of darkness. That's the line I see in scripture. And so if you're going to assess anything or people on lines, I think that's the best discernment to have. It's like, what team are they working for, like, ultimately? And not these race dynamic power play. I feel like people are just doing it to stir people up and get them mad at each other. Like, I think that's unhelpful. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you addressed the topic well.
All right. Hopefully that wasn't too intense, Megan. Your kids are really cute. Let's see. Was there anything really hard you had to wrestle with on this journey of being Torah observant? And if so, what was it?
Do you want to go first?
I'm still thinking.
No, the only like difficult thing is managing other people's reactions and worrying about other people's reactions. I mean, when you know that this stuff is true, what's hard about it? I mean, if it's true, it's true. And what the great thing is, it's all great, because if you found more information that Yah gave you on how to live suddenly, that's all plus. It's all bonus. It's all awesome. Whoever has gotten more instruction from the most intelligent being ever to exist and thought that was a downside. That's a
good point.
It's perfect. Only, yes and amen, only greatness comes from learning more of the instructions in life. Only non-death and more life comes. So no, it hasn't been hard. I mean, and the only thing is, if you give in to the fear of man and you worry about what man will believe about you not eating pork and shellfish and bat and everything else and cat and monkey, and if you're not or if you're not going to rent out your Airbnb on Shabbat, or if you're doing this and that, but all of these things, you can defer to them because they're instructions of life written by the permanent pen of the author of life itself, of being itself. So it's great. Everything's great about the Torah. I mean, it hasn't been hard. It's only been great. That's what I say. I mean, yeah, you might be around less people that believe exactly the same way as you, but that just makes you the smartest person in the room who can like guide them towards life.
That's so funny.
So you now have a new responsibility. The new responsibility is you no longer can just be a follower who learns from people. You have to not only learn from people, which you will all be doing our whole lives, not only follow people, which we'll all be doing our own lives, but our whole lives, but you'll also be leading people in the ways of life and teaching them all the things that Yeshua commanded. And you may be some of the only people that they ever meet who are doing those things. And so that is a new responsibility on your shoulders, and you should realize that it is the requirement of the blessing that you got on the other end. So you're getting a blessing, but you're getting a responsibility with it. So I've enjoyed it, and I hope you all are enjoying it as well. Would you like to say anything else there?
What can I add to that? That's great. I'm just soaking it in. Sorry, I got lost in what you were saying, so my brain went blank.
That's the last question. Unless you want to add any more, we should
I do
wrap
have
with
one
that.
last question for you.
Oh.
Choosing between two. Do you want me to ask you the question I ask all my girlfriends?
Probably not.
Okay. I will anyway. What are you trying to figure out right now? Are you trying to figure anything out?
Katie always wants to spring something on me and these things.
It's a fun question. Try it, you guys.
I am trying to figure out the next project to do, the next documentary. I mean, we have an idea of one, but I can't talk about it right now, and it's all contingent on things that are outside of my control, real world events outside of my control. So there's that, and then there's the history doc. So I'm trying to figure that out. Which one of these? I hope to soon be working on a documentary project. It's not happening yet. I mean, we're working on that. So that's what I'm trying to figure out. The next project to focus on
Cool.
which to focus.
Cool.
What are you trying to figure out?
Oh. Always just how to muscle our house into submission. What can I get rid of? Need a big old Goodwill box. That. I'm trying to figure out how to automate those shorts, like we talked about. I know there's a way, but the way that I tried wasn't really working very well. I'm trying to figure out if I should stick to my cleaning system of like having each day of the week have a specific thing, which I like mentally, or if I should just clean stuff when I see it.
So basically, the little schedule you have or no schedule.
Yeah, more organic flow. That's silly. Is that a good thing to figure out? What am I really trying to figure out?
I think you should stick with the schedule.
I'm trying to figure out how to wake up early and have that feel like I'm staying up late. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Got any tips for me there?
Hey guys, it's been a year that we've done this podcast. This is episode number 52.
Woo!
And so I'm glad that it was with Katie. It's been a year that we've done this. I originally said we would do an experiment for a year.
Mm-hmm. Experiment over.
Experiment is over.
Just kidding.
But should we continue the experiment?
Let's ask the people.
Should we keep doing the podcast, guys? Do you enjoy it?
Thumbs this episode up if you want more podcasts. Thumbs it down if you want us to stop right now.
Yes. If you want more podcasts, like the video, share it, subscribe, and visit our Patreon, patreon.com/thelifewithluke, if you want to meet up with me on the last Thursday of every month. And we got one coming up in a week or two. And thank you guys for watching. This has been a blast, baby.
Yeah,
This has been a blast. I hope you've enjoyed this. Send us questions you may have. We may do another one of these in a year. Who knows?
Shout out to my mom for telling us to do a 2-shot. She's like, I want to see you both so I can see the dynamic. If you like that dynamic and you like that shot, then tell my mom thanks.
Until next time. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.